Have you ever met someone who acted like they were the boss of everything? Someone who made things tough for everyone else just because they wanted to? Well, let me tell you about a lady named Karen Thompson. She thought she was the queen of her neighborhood. She walked around like she owned every house, every street, every blade of grass. But one choice she made flipped her whole world upside down, and it hurt someone in a way nobody could fix. Hey there, before we jump into this story, I want to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. Are you at home, at school, or maybe somewhere super cool? Oh, and if you like stories that keep you glued to your seat, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss any of my tailies. Here's a big question to think about. What would you do if someone stopped help from coming when you really needed it? Like, imagine you're in trouble and someone just says, "Nope, you can't get help." That's wild, right? Keep that question in your head because this story is going to make you wonder. Stick with me and you'll see why. Okay, let's set the scene. Picture a place called Sunny Acres. It's one of those neighborhoods that looks like it's from a movie. The houses are neat and tidy, with bright green lawns that look like they're mowed every single day. White picket fences line the yards and flowers bloom in perfect rows. Kids ride bikes down the street and neighbors wave to each other. It sounds like the best place to live, doesn't it? But there was one problem in Sunny Acres. That problem had a name: Karen Thompson. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the president of something called the HOA. That stands for Homeowners Association. It's a group that makes rules for the neighborhood to keep everything perfect. Things like how tall your grass can be or what color your mailbox should be. Sounds boring, right? Well, for Karen, those rules were her whole life. She loved them. She loved them too much. Karen walked around Sunny Acres like she was a sheriff in an old cowboy movie. She'd march up and down the streets, her eyes sharp, looking for anything that wasn't just right. Forgot to pull your trash can back inside after pickup day. Boom, Karen would slap you with a fine. That means you'd have to pay money just because she said so. Parked your car a tiny bit too close to the corner. Uh-oh, another fine. One time, a kid named Timmy left his skateboard on his driveway for like an hour. Guess what? Karen wrote him a note saying he broke the rules and owed $10. $10 for a skateboard. Everyone in Sunny Acres knew Karen, and to be honest, most people were kind of scared of her. She wasn't mean in a loud, yelling way. No, she was sneaky about it. She'd smile when she handed you a fine, but her eyes said, "I'm in charge and you better not forget it." Neighbors would whisper about her when she wasn't around. "Did you hear what Karen did to the Millers?" they'd say. "She made them repaint their whole fence because it was the wrong shade of white." Yep, that was Karen. To her, the rules were more important than anything or anyone. Now let's talk about the other people in this story, because it's not just about Karen. Sunny Acres had all kinds of folks living there. There were families with kids, old couples who'd lived there forever, and even some new people who'd just moved in. One of those new families was the Harrisons. They were super nice. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison always said hi to everyone, and they had a son named Liam. Liam was about 15 years old, and he was the kind of kid who'd help you carry groceries or fix your bike if the chain fell off. Everybody liked the Harrisons. Well, everybody except you-know-who. See, Liam had something going on with his health. His heart wasn't as strong as it should be. Sometimes he'd feel really tired or dizzy and he'd need to go to the hospital to get checked out. It wasn't a secret. The neighbors knew about it and they'd always ask Mrs. Harrison, "How's Liam doing?" She'd smile and say, "He's okay, thanks for asking." But Karen, she didn't seem to care about Liam or his heart. To her, the Harrisons were just another family who needed to follow her precious rules. Here, where things start to get interesting. One day, something happened in Sunny Acres that nobody saw coming. It was a regular afternoon, the kind where the sun is shining, birds are chirping, and everything feels calm. Kids were playing outside and a few neighbors were watering their flowers, but over at the Harrisons' house things weren't so calm. Liam wasn't feeling good. His chest hurt and he was breathing funny. Mrs. Harrison, whose name was Sarah, got scared. She could tell this wasn't just a little problem. She grabbed her phone and called 911 right away. "Help, please," she said to the person on the phone. "My son needs an ambulance, hurry." The 911 lady stayed calm and told Sarah help was coming. Sarah held Liam's hand, telling him, "It's okay, buddy. The ambulance is almost here, just hold on." Liam nodded, but he looked pale and his eyes were scared. Sarah kept looking out the window, waiting for those flashing red lights to show up. She knew every second counted. Now Sunny Acres wasn't just any neighborhood. It had a big gate at the entrance. That gate was supposed to keep strangers out and make everyone feel safe. Only people who lived there had a special code to open it. But here's the thing, Karen loved that gate. She treated it like it was her job to guard it. She'd put up signs saying stuff like "No visitors without permission" and "Authorized vehicles only." Most of the time that was fine. But on this day, that gate was about to cause a big problem. The ambulance was speeding towards Sunny Acres, its sirens screaming so everyone could hear it coming. The paramedics, the people who help in emergencies, knew they had to get to Liam fast. They pulled up to the gate, ready to punch in the code and zoom through. But guess who was standing there right in front of the gate like a statue? You got it, Karen Thompson. Karen had seen the ambulance coming. Most people would have opened the gate right away, especially with those sirens blaring, but not Karen. She crossed her arms and stood there, staring at the ambulance like it was breaking one of her rules. The paramedics rolled down their window and shouted, "Ma'am, we need to get through, it's an emergency." Karen didn't move. She pointed at one of her signs and said, "No vehicles without approval, that's the rule." The paramedics couldn't believe it. "There's a kid who needs us," one of them said. "Please open the gate," but Karen just shook her head. "Rules are rules," she said, her voice cold as ice. The paramedics kept trying to explain, but Karen wouldn't listen. She thought she was doing her job, keeping Sunny Acres perfect. But what she was really doing was something nobody could have imagined. Back at the Harrisons' house, Sarah was still waiting. She kept checking the clock, her heart pounding. "Why aren't they here yet?" she whispered. Liam was trying so hard to stay strong, but he was getting weaker. Sarah didn't know what was happening at the gate. All she knew was that help wasn't coming and she was running out of time. This moment, this one choice Karen made was the spark that started everything. Nobody in Sunny Acres knew it yet, but things were about to change forever. Karen thought she was in control, but she was about to learn that some rules aren't worth following. And the Harrisons, they were about to face something so sad, it would shake the whole neighborhood to its core. So what do you think so far? Can you believe someone would stop an ambulance like that? I know it's hard to imagine, but this story gets even wilder. Corinne's rules were her world, but they were about to crash down around her. And the Harrisons, they weren't going to stay quiet. Something big was coming, something that would make everyone in Sunny Acres see Corinne for who she really was. Before we keep going, let me ask you again, what would you do if someone got in the way of help you needed? Would you stay quiet or would you fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I really want to know. And don't go anywhere, this story is just getting started. The truth about Corinne and what happened next is going to blow your mind. Corinne Thompson wasn't just a lady who liked things neat and tidy. Oh no, she was tough, super tough. Some people even said she was mean. If you did something she didn't like in Sunny Acres, you were in big trouble. Maybe you'd find a rude note stuck to your front door telling you what you did wrong. Or worse, you'd get a fine, a piece of paper saying you owed money just because Corinne said so. Those fines could be huge, like having to pay for a whole new bike. Most people in the neighborhood were scared of her. They tried to stay quiet and follow her rules so she wouldn't notice them. It was like walking on tiptoes around a sleeping bear. You didn't want to wake it up. But there was one family who couldn't stay out of Corinne's way, no matter how hard they tried. Their name was the Harrisons, and they were brand new to Sunny Acres. They moved into a cute house with a blue door, and they were the kind of people who made you smile. Mr. Harrison would tell silly jokes while mowing the lawn. Mrs. Harrison, whose name was Sarah, baked cookies and shared them with the neighbors. And their son, Liam, was a teenager who was always happy to help. As if your ball got stuck in a tree, Liam would climb up and get it. If you dropped your groceries, he'd carry them for you. Everybody liked the Harrisons. They were like a burst of sunshine in the neighborhood. But Liam had a problem. His heart wasn't as strong as other kids. Sometimes he'd feel really tired or dizzy and his chest would hurt. When that happened, he needed to go to the hospital fast to make sure he was okay. It wasn't something the Harrisons hid. They told the neighbors about it, and people would check in saying, "Hey, how's Liam doing today?" Most folks cared a lot. But Corinne, she didn't seem to care at all. To her, Liam was just another kid, and the Harrisons were just another family who had to follow her rules. No exceptions, no matter what. Now let's talk about one very important evening. It started out like any other day in Sunny Acres. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Kids were riding their bikes and a few dogs were barking in backyards. But at the Harrisons' house, things weren't so peaceful. Liam wasn't feeling good. He was sitting on the couch, his face pale, holding his chest. Sarah looked at him and knew something was wrong, really wrong. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. "Please hurry," she said to the person on the phone. "My son needs help. His heart, he's not okay." Her voice was wobbly, like she was trying not to cry. The 911 lady told her to stay calm and said an ambulance was coming right away. Sarah hung up and knelt next to Liam. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, holding his hand tight. "Help is coming, just breathe, sweetie." Liam nodded, but his breaths were short and fast, like he was running a race even though he was sitting still. Outside, the ambulance was speeding toward Sunny Acres. Its sirens were loud, screaming through the air so everyone would know to get out of the way. The paramedics, the people who help when someone's sick or hurt, knew they had to get to Liam as fast as possible. They drove up to the big gate at the entrance of the neighborhood. That gate was supposed to keep bad people out, but it had a code to let important people in, like delivery trucks or, ambulances. The paramedics were ready to punch in the code and zoom through. But then they saw something that made their jaws drop. Standing right in front of the gate was Karen Thompson. Her arms were crossed and she looked mad, like a teacher catching you chewing gum in class. The ambulance stopped and one of the paramedics leaned out the window. "Ma'am, we need to get through," he shouted. "It's an emergency." Karen didn't move an inch. She pointed to a sign next to the gate, a sign she had put up. It said, "No vehicles without permission." In her mind, that sign was like a magic shield. "No unauthorized vehicles," Karen said, her voice sharp and cold. The paramedics blinked, thinking they must have heard her wrong. "Ma'am, there's a kid who's really sick," the other paramedic said. "We have to get to him now," but Karen just shook her head. "Rules are rules," she said, like that explained everything. To her, it didn't matter who was in trouble or how bad it was. If you didn't follow her rules, you didn't belong in Sunny Acres. The paramedics kept trying to talk to her. "Please just open the gate," they begged. They told her about Liam, how he needed them right away, but Karen wouldn't listen. She stood there like a wall, her face hard as stone. Every second that passed was like a clock ticking louder and louder. 1 minute went by, then 2, then 3. The paramedics were getting upset. They wanted to help Liam, but Karen was making it impossible. Back at the Harrisons' house, Sarah was still waiting. She kept looking out the window, hoping to see those flashing red lights, but the street was empty. "Where are they?" she whispered, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Liam was trying to stay calm, but he was scared. Sarah could see it in his eye. She squeezed his hand and said, "They're almost here, I promise." But deep down, she was starting to panic. Why was it taking so long? Ambulances were supposed to be fast, right? What was going on? Outside, a few neighbors heard the sirens and peeked out their windows. They saw the ambulance stuck at the gate and wondered what was happening. Some of them even saw Karen standing there, blocking the way. They whispered to each other, "Is that Karen? What's she doing?" But nobody went out to say anything. They were too afraid of her. That's how much power Karen had. She could make people stay quiet, even when something big was going wrong. This moment was like a storm cloud growing bigger and darker. Karen thought she was doing the right thing, keeping her neighborhood perfect. But she didn't know what her choice was doing to Liam and Sarah. Every second she stood in front of that gate was making things worse. Sarah was at home, watching her son struggle, with no idea why help wasn't coming. And Liam, he was fighting to hold on, hoping the ambulance would show up soon. What do you think about that? Can you imagine being stuck, waiting for help and not knowing why it's not there? It's scary to think about, isn't it? Karen's rules were about to cause a problem bigger than she could ever imagine. And the Harrisons, they were about to face something that would change their lives forever. The paramedics finally got past the gate, but it took way too long. Those minutes they lost were super important, like missing the start of your favorite show. They drove as fast as they could to the Harrisons' house, tires squealing on the road. When they got there, Sarah was sitting next to Liam, her face wet with tears. Liam looked really bad. His skin was pale and he was breathing all funny, like he couldn't get enough air. Sarah held his hand tight and whispered, "Hang on, Liam. Help is here. You're going to be okay." Her voice was soft, but it was shaky, like she was trying to believe her own words. The paramedics jumped out of the ambulance and ran inside. They had all kinds of tools and bags to help sick people. They knelt next to Liam and started working fast. One checked his heart and another put a mask on his face to help him breathe. They were doing everything they could, but deep down they were worried. Those minutes stuck at the gate, they knew that time could have helped Liam. They didn't say it out loud, but their faces looked serious, like when your teacher knows something's wrong but doesn't tell you. Sarah stood back, watching them work. She kept saying, "Please, please save him." Her hands were shaking, and she felt like her heart was breaking. The paramedics moved Liam onto a stretcher, a bed with wheels, and carried him to the ambulance. The sirens screamed again as they sped to the hospital. Sarah went with them, sitting next to Liam, holding his hand the whole way. She kept talking to him, saying, "You're strong, Liam, you can do this." But Liam's eyes were closing, and he wasn't answering anymore. At the hospital, doctors and nurses were waiting. They took Liam straight to a room and started working hard to help him. They used machines and medicines, trying everything they knew. Sarah waited outside, packing back and forth, praying her son would be okay. She kept looking at the door, hoping a doctor would come out and say, "He's fine now." But that didn't happen. After what felt like forever, a doctor walked out. His face was sad and he spoke quietly. "I'm so sorry," he said. "We did all we could, but Liam's heart wasn't strong enough." Sarah felt like the world stopped. She fell to her knees, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Her boy, her sweet Liam, was gone. Just like that, he wasn't coming back. She thought about his smile, his laugh, how he'd help anyone who needed it. And now he was gone, and she didn't understand why. Back in Sunny Acres, word spread fast. Neighbors started talking, whispering to each other over fences and in driveways. "Did you hear about Liam?" they'd say. "He didn't make it." People were sad, but they were also mad. They started asking questions. Why did the ambulance take so long? What happened at the gate? Then someone said it. It was Karen. She wouldn't let them in. The whispers got louder, and soon everyone was pointing fingers at Karen Thompson. Karen heard the talk, but she didn't act sorry. When neighbors asked her about it, she stood up straight and said, "I was just doing my job. Rules are rules." She sounded so sure of herself, like she hadn't done anything wrong. If someone parked their car wrong, she'd fine them. If someone needed help, well, they still had to follow her rules. That's how Karen thought. To her, keeping Sunny Acres perfect was more important than anything else, even a kid like Liam. But even though Karen acted tough, things were changing. Neighbors who used to nod and smile at her started turning away when she walked by. If she was in the store, people would go to a different aisle. Kids stopped playing near her house. One morning, Karen found a note taped to her door. It wasn't one of her usual fine letters, it was from a neighbor. In big, messy letters, it said, "You caused this." Another day, someone left a piece of paper under her windshield wiper that said, "Shame on you." Karen ripped the notes up and threw them away, pretending they didn't bother her. But when she was alone at night, sitting in her quiet house, she started to feel something new. It was like a little knot in her stomach, telling her things weren't okay. Karen tried to tell herself she was right. "I followed the rules," she'd whisper to herself, packing her kitchen. But the knot wouldn't go away. She'd look out her window and see neighbors talking, glancing at her house. She'd hear the phone ring, but no one would be there when she answered. It was like the whole neighborhood was pushing her away, and for the first time, Karen wasn't sure what to do. Meanwhile, Sarah wasn't just sitting at home crying. Don't get me wrong, she was sad, sadder than she'd ever been. She missed Liam every second. His room was still there with his posters on the wall and his favorite hoodie on the chair. Every time she walked by, her heart hurt. But Sarah was also strong. She wasn't going to let Liam's story end without answers. She started asking questions like a detective in a mystery book. Why was the ambulance late? What went wrong? She talked to the paramedics who told her about the gate and how they were stuck. Then she talked to a neighbor who saw it all happen. That neighbor said it was Karen. She wouldn't open the gate. When Sarah heard that, something inside her clicked. It was like a light turning on, but it was an angry light. Karen didn't just make Liam wait, she stopped the people who could have saved him. Sarah's sadness turned into fire. She wasn't going to let Karen act like nothing happened. She wasn't going to let those rules matter more than her son. Sarah wiped her tears and said to herself, "This isn't over." Sarah started digging for more clues. She found out the gate had a camera that recorded everything. Maybe it caught what Karen did. She called the HOA office and asked about it, but they wouldn't help. They were scared of Karen too. So Sarah kept pushing, talking to anyone who might know something. She wasn't loud or mean about it, but she was like a dog with a bone. She wouldn't give up. Neighbors started noticing. Some even came to her house with snacks, saying, "We're so sorry about Liam. What can we do?" Sarah didn't know it yet, but she was starting something big. The neighborhood was like a pot of water getting hotter and hotter. People were tired of Karen's rules, and Liam's story made them brave. They started talking louder, not just whispering. One guy said, "Karen's gone too far." A lady at the park agreed, saying, "We need to do something." And Sarah, she was at the center of it all, asking questions, finding answers, and making sure Liam wasn't forgot. Can you believe how things were changing? Karen thought she was in charge, but now people were turning against her. And Sarah, she was so brave, even when her heart was broken. What do you think was going to happen next? Would Karen keep acting tough, or would she finally see what she did? Stick around, because this story, about to get even bigger. Sarah wasn't going to let Karen get away with what happened to Liam. She was sad, but she was also super strong, like a superhero finding her powers. She decided to get help from a lawyer, a person who knows all about rules and laws. Together, they started looking for answers about that awful night when the ambulance couldn't get through. They asked questions, checked papers, and talked to people who saw things. It was like putting together a giant puzzle, and Sarah wasn't going to stop until every piece fit. One day, they found something huge. There was a camera at the Sunny Acres gate, and it recorded everything. That camera was like a secret spy, catching every moment on video. Sarah and her lawyer got a copy of the footage, and when they watched it, their eyes got wide. The video showed Karen standing in front of the gate, arms crossed, looking mean. The ambulance was right there, its red lights flashing, and the paramedics were yelling, "Please let us in, a kid needs help." But Karen didn't move. She pointed to her sign and said, "No vehicles allowed." Her face was cold, like she didn't care at all. The video was so clear, it was like watching a movie where you could see every single thing. That video was a big deal, like finding a treasure chest full of truth. Sarah knew it could show everyone what Karen did. At first, she shared it with a few neighbors she trusted. They watched it on her phone and their mouths dropped open. "That's awful," one said. "How could she do that?" another asked. Soon those neighbors told other neighbors and the video started spreading. It was like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger. People in Sunny Acres sent it to their friends. Then it got to the city news, and before long, it was all over the internet. People everywhere saw it, and they were mad, really, really mad. They left comments online saying things like, "That lady is heartless, and she needs to say sorry." The whole town was buzzing, and Sunny Acres wasn't quiet